Good day, everyone. So we are the group
5.
and our topic's all about global migration. So our objective is the students should be able to, number one, identify the reason for the migration of people. Number two, explain why states regulate migration. And three, discuss the effects of global migration on the economic well-being of states. So, this lesson will look at global migration on its impact on both sending and receiving countries. Although we will set numerous challenges relating to migration, but migration should not be considered as a problem. Why is it? So there is nothing moral or immoral about moving from one country to another. Human beings have always been migratory. Why? It is the result of their movements that areas got populated, communities experience diversity, and economies prosper. Thus, rather than looking at migration in terms of a simplistic good or versus bad lens, treat it as a complex social phenomenon that even predates contemporary globalization. So, what is migration? There are two types of migration. The internal migration, which refers to people moving from one area to another within one country. So, example of this is, di ba, naata sa Philippines, and then, like, nagpuyo ka sa Manila, and then, nagbalhin ka sa Davao, nagmove ka sa Davao. That is called internal migration. So, the international migration, which people cross borders of one country to another. So, ang international migration is like, for example, di ba, naata sa Philippines and then mag-move ka sa Canada. So, that is international migration. So, the latter can be further broken into 5 groups. So, the first are those who move permanently to another country, which is called immigrants. So, mo ni nga mga kuan ka ng mga nag-move ka ni sa like iba taga Philippines tapos nag-move sa Canada permanently. Ito na jud nagpuyo. So the second refers to workers who stay in another country for a fixed period of time, at least 6 months in a year. So mo ni sila ang mga tao nga or mga people nga adto sila nasod for work and then kontrata sila like 6 months to 1 year, 2 years mo na sila. And then, illegal migrants complete the third group. So, kaning mga illegal migrants, mo ni ang mga tao nga nag-adto sa states without visa. Or di kaya sa kanang na-born sa laing nasod, nga wala sila papers. Nga dito sila na-born, wala sila visa, mga anak. So, mo na ang illegal migrants. While the fourth are migrants whose families have petitioned them to move to the destination country. So, mo ni sila ang mga tao nga ilang mga family na nasa laing nasod and then sila nila nabilin dre sa Pilipinas. So, gikuha sila, gipetition sila para ditoan na magpuyo. And then, the fifth group are the refugees, also known as asylum seekers. Thus, unable or unwilling to return because of a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group or political opinion. So mao ni sila ang mga tao nga napilitan nga magbalhin sa lahi nga country because of race, religion, nationality of di kaya war, di ba, like para sa kuan sa Serbia ba, di ba, nagkuan sa ilaha nag-war, 'di ba, napilitan sila nga magbalhin og lain nga country asa to sila nga country nagbalhin. So that is called refugees or kaya asylum seekers. So according to demographers, estimate that 247 million people are currently living outside the countries of their birth. And there are 90% of them move for economic reasons, while the remaining 10% were refugees and asylum seekers. So the top 3 regions of origin are Latin America, which has 18% of global total, followed by Eastern Europe and Central Asia, 16%, and the Middle East and North Africa, 14%. On a per country basis, India, Mexico, and China are leading, with the Philippines, together with Afghanistan, only ranking 6th in the world. The top 10 country destinations of these migrants are mainly in the West, in the Middle East, and the United States topping the list. So 15% of the global migrants have moved from the developing countries to developed zones of the world and contribute anywhere from 40% to 80% of their labor force. So their growth has outstripped the population growth in the developed countries. 3%. Remember this. 3% versus only 0.6%, diba? Such that today, so according to think tank McKinsey, Global Institute, first-generation immigrants constitute 13% of the population in Western Europe, and 15% in North America, and 48% in the GCC countries. So the majority of migrants remain in the cities. The percentages of immigrants in the cities are 92% in the United States, 95% in the United Kingdom, and 99% in Australia. Once settled, they contribute enormously to raising the productivity of the host countries. So, makita na ninyo siya sa table 1, which is i-discuss ni Alexis.
Hello everyone, good day. I am Alexis Manlangi, 19 years old. This is the continuation of the topic of Miss Donya, which is migration. To continue, I'm going to discuss to you the migrant contribution to destination country in dollars and percentage of the national GDP of 2015. As of 2015, the country which has the biggest contribution of $2 trillion and has the lowest percentage of GDP of 11% is the United States of America. There are 5 countries or 5 migrant contributor countries in the world: the United States, Germany, United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. And Canada is the lowest contributor and the second highest percent of GDP, which has the contribution of $320 billion and 21% GDP. The migrant influx has led to a debate and destination countries over the issue of whether migrants are assets or liabilities to national development. Anti-immigrant groups and nationalists argue that governments must control legal immigration and put a stop to illegal entry of foreigners. Many of these anti-immigrant groups are gaining influence through political leaders who share their beliefs. For example, US President Donald Trump and UK Prime Minister Theresa May, who have been reversing the existing pro-immigration and refugee-sympathetic policies of their states. Most recently, Trump's attempt to ban travel in the United States of people from majority Muslim countries, even those with proper documentation. He also continues to speak about his election promise of building a wall between the United States and Mexico. The wisdom of this government action has been consistently belied by the data. A 2011 Harvard Business School survey on the impact of immigration concluded that likelihood and magnitude of adverse labor market effects of foreign native from immigration are substantially weaker than often perceived. The massive inflow of refugees from Syria and Iraq has raised alarm bells once again, but has not proved to be as damaging as expected. The International Monetary Fund predicted that the flow of refugees fleeing the war in Syria and Iraq would actually grow Europe's GDP. In Germany, the inflow of refugees from the Middle East has not affected social welfare programs and had very little impact on wages and employment. In fact, they have brought much needed labor to the economy instead. Thank you and God bless.
Hello everyone, good day. My name is Maple Joy Manco, and in this video, I will present my topic, the problem of human trafficking. What is human trafficking first? Human trafficking is the unlawful act of transporting or coercing people in order to benefit from their work or service, typically in the form of forced labor or sexual exploitation. There are elements, types, and problem itself about human trafficking. The human trafficking in person is a serious crime and a grave violation of human rights. There are examples of human trafficking, and these are forced labor, debt bondage, sexual exploitation, forced marriage, domestic servitude, organ removal, and etc. The elements of human trafficking are three: the act, the mean, and the purpose. Which is the act is what is done. Recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of a person. The purpose, or why it is done. For the purpose of exploitation, which is include exploiting the prostitute of others, sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, or similar practices, and the removal of organs. Human trafficking happens in almost every country around the world, including here in Philippines. Traffickers are not only men, women are also perpetrators. Young people, especially with those risk factors, are vulnerable to human trafficking. The Administration for the Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services issued new guidance on children trafficking to child welfare system and runaway and homeless youth program because of increased vulnerability to trafficking for youth who have experienced prior abuse or who have run away from home.
Integration. How migrants interact with their new home countries. A final issue relates to how migrants interact with their new home countries. They may contribute significantly to a host nation's GDP, but their access to housing, healthcare, and education is not easy. There is, of course, considerable variation in economic integration of migrants. Dako ang kontribusyon sa mga migrants sa GDP or gross domestic product sa nasod, pero ang pag-access nila sa housing, healthcare, and education kay dili sayon. Migrants from China, India, and Western Europe often have more success, while those from the Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa face greater challenges in securing jobs. Ang mga migrants nga gikan sa China, India, and Western Europe mas daghan og kalampusan, while ang mga migrants nga gikan sa Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa nagatubang sa mas daghan nga mga hagit, challenges sa pagpangita og mga trabaho. Democratic states assimilate immigrants to their children by granting them citizenship and the rights that go with it, especially public education. However, without a solid support from their citizens, switching citizenship may just be a formality. Ang mga demokratikong estado, ginadawat nila ang mga migrants o ang ilang mga anak pinaagi sa paghatag sa ila o pagkamamamayan or citizenship, and of course, ang public nga edukasyon. Pero kung walay suporta gikan sa mga mamamayan, ang pagbalhin ng pagkamamamayan or citizenship kay formalidad lamang. Linguistic difficulties, customs from the old city, and of late, differing religions may create cleavage between migrants and citizens of receiving countries, particularly in the West. Wika, culture, sa daan nga lugar ug lahi-lahi nga mga religions mahimong makamugna or create og mga pagbulag sa mga migrants og mga mamamayan nga nidawat nga lugar, particularly in the West o kanluran. The latter accuse migrants of bringing in the culture from their home countries and applying differences in linguistic and ethnic customs. Inakusahan ng huli ang mga migrants nga nagdala sa kultura gikan sa ilang mga nasod at pinalalakas ang mga pagkakaiba sa linguistic o ethnic customs. Lack of integration gives xenophobic and anti-immigrant groups more ammunition to argue that these new citizens are often not nationals. Ang kakulang sa integration maghatag sa xenophobic o anti-immigrant nga mga grupo ug dugang mga bala aron makiglalis nga kini pag-ung mga mamamayan kasagaran dili mga mamamayan. Xenophobic is having or showing a dislike against people from other countries. Pagkakaroon o pagpakita nga dili walay gusto sa mga tao nga gikan sa ubang lugar, ubang mga nasod. Migrants unwittingly reinforce the tension by keeping among themselves. The first time migrants' anxiety at coming into a new and often strange place is mitigated by local networks of fellow citizens that serves as the migrant's safety net from the dislocation of approaching oneself. For instance, the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association of California provides initial support for new Chinese migrants, guiding them in finding work and setting up their small businesses. The drawback of these networks is that instead of facilitating integration, they exacerbate differences and discrimination. The drawback of this network ay sa halip na mapadali ang pagsasama, pinalalala nila ang mga pagkakaiba at diskriminasyon. Governments and private businesses have made policy changes to address integration problems like using multiple languages in state documents. In the case of United States, Spanish and English. Training programs complemented with counseling have also helped migrants' integration in Hamburg, Germany, while retail merchants in Barcelona have bought in migrant shopkeepers to break down language barriers while introducing Chinese culture to citizens. Whether this initiative will succeed or not remains an open question. Ang gobyerno o pribadong negosyo ay gumawa ng mga pagbabago sa patakaran upang matugunan ang mga problema sa pagsasama. Ang mga programa sa pagsasanay na sinamahan ng pagpapayo nakatabang sa integration sa mga migrants. Kung kini nga mga hakbangin or initiatives magtagumpay ba or dili ay napabilin nga isang bukas na tanong. That's all, and let's proceed to the next topic, to the next reporter. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Caroline Joanne B. Ligan. Today, I will be discussing to you the benefits and detriments of descending countries. Even if 90% of the value generated by migrant workers remains in their host countries, they have sent bullion back to their countries in 2014. Their remittance totaled $580 billion. In 2014, India held the highest recorded remittance, which is $70 billion, followed by China, $62 billion. In Philippines, we have $28 billion, and also Mexico have $25 billion. Remittance makes significant contribution to the development of small and medium-term industries that help generated jobs. Ang remittance daw kuno is ga-contribute o ga-develop sa small and medium term sa mga industry nga ga-generate sa mga jobs. Remittance likewise changed the economic and social standing of migrants, as shown by new or renovated homes and their relatives' access to the new consumer goods. The purchasing power of the migrant family doubles and make it possible for children to start or continue their schooling. Yet, they remain serious concerns about the economic sustainability of those reliant on migrant monies. Sa wala kabalo, ang migrant is ang mga tawo nga nag-adto sa laing nasod para didto mangita og trabaho or makapangita og kanang better future like mga OFW. Dili pod basta-basta mahimo kang migrant sa isa ka bansa or sa isa ka country kung dili ka moabot sa years nga ilang gikuan para ma-accept kanila. The Asian Development Bank observed that the countries like the Philippines remittance do not have the significant influence on the other key items of consumption or investments such as spending on education and healthcare. Remittance therefore may help in lifting household out of poverty, but not of in rebalancing growth, especially in a long run. More importantly, global migration, softening qualified personnel, and removing dynamic young workers, or as called brain drain. According again to the Mackenzie Global Institute, countries in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia have lost of one-third of their college graduates. 60% of those who move to OECD destination were college graduate, compared to just 9% of the Filipino who live for work in the developed world have tertiary education, which is more than double the 23% of the overall Filipino population. Furthermore, the losses of professional in certain key rules, such as doctors, has been detrimental to the migrant home countries. In 2006, some 15% of locally trained doctors from 21 sub-Saharan African countries had emigrated to the United States or Canada. The losses were particularly steep in Liberia, Liberia, where 43% of doctors left, where Ghana is 30% and Uganda is 20%. Since nagsugod ang migration sa laing nasa sa Pilipinas, ga-migrate ang mga Filipino to other country. Ang other country ga-migrate po siya sa lain, like mga doctors. Nakita nila nga mas taas ang remittance nga ginahatag sa ilaha, so ga-migrant sila sa laing nasod. Mao na siya ang benefit sa migration. Dako kay sila og makuha nga remittance as a worker didto sa lugar. Governments are aware to this long-term handicap but have no choice but to continue promoting migrant works as a part of the state policy because of the remittance impact on GDP. Biskan pa og daghan na kayong mga workers ana nga countries gadawat lang yapon sila og migrants tungod sa remittance nga gakakuha nila sa GDP. They are eventually concerned with generating jobs for an underutilized workforce and in getting the maximum possible inflow of worker remittance. Governments are thus actively involved in the recruitment and development of works, some of them setting up the departments like the Bureau of Manpower, Employment and Training in Bangladesh, the Office of the Protector of Migrants, and the India Labor Ministry, and also the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency. Kani sila nga mga agency dinhi gaagi ang mga tao or ang mga migrant nga moadto sa laing nasod para mahatagan sila og training og mahatagan sila og protection. The sustainability of migrant-dependent economies will partially depend on the strength of this institution. Gadepende gyud ang isa ka migrant sa isa ka institution kung dako ba siya kuha sa remittance or dako ba sila ginakuha nga remittance sa GDP. This is my topic all about, and that's all. Thank you.
Global migration involves globalization of people, and like any other broader globalization, it isn't even. Some migrants experience their movement as a liberating process. So ang uban, ginakonsider nila ang ilahang pagbalhin sa other country as a start of their freedom. A highly educated professional may find moving to another country financially rewarding. Sometimes, di ba lahi-lahi man og value ang kwarta? Ang kwarta nato diri sa Pilipinas, if atong gastuon sa Korea, mas dako iyang kantidad. At the other hand, a victim of sex trafficking may view the process of migration as dislocating and disempowering. Like globalization, migration produces different and often contradictory responses. And many richer states know that migrant labor will be beneficial to their economies. Diba, migrant labor like ato ang like taga diri ka sa Pilipinas tapos ato ka abroad para magtrabaho. On the other hand, many richer states know that migrant labor will be beneficial to their economies. With their aging populations, examples are Japan and Germany will need workers from demographically young countries like Philippines. So, for example, ang Japan and Germany is murag ga-import or like ga-hire og mga job workers from Philippines. So example anay is ang atuang mga OFWs. Similarly, as working populations in countries like the United States move to more skilled careers, their economies will require migrants to work jobs that their local workers are beginning to reject. So example, sa United States, ilahang mga workers dito is mag-move na to more skilled careers na yung mga jobs nga maglisod na sila pangita og mga workers locally sa ilaha. So, dira na din na magsulod na magngita sila, dira na nila kailangan ng migrant laborers who will work for the jobs that are being rejected by their local workers. And yet, despite these benefits, developed countries continue to excessively limit and restrict migrant laborers. They do so for numerous factors already mentioned. Some want to preserve what they perceive as local culture by shielding it from newcomers. Other states use migrants as scapegoats, blaming them for economic woes that are in reality caused by government policies and not by foreigners. Sometimes, bisan dili gyud ang mga foreigners or migrant laborers ang murag cause ato nga issue, ang migrant laborers or ang foreigners ang gaka-blame. They use them as scapegoats. Yet, despite the various contradictions, it is clear that different forms of global interdependence will ensure that global migration will continue to be one of the major issues in the contemporary world. Countries whose economies have become entirely dependent on globalization and rely on foreign labor to continue growing. Example countries are Singapore, Saudi Arabia, and even protectionist Japan. Those countries will actively court foreign workers. Likewise, countries like the Philippines with an abundance of labor and a need for remittances will continue to send these workers. So, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, and even protectionist Japan, magpadayon gud sila like hire og mga foreign workers, mga foreign laborers, mga migrant laborers para continue grow ilahang economy. Hence, it is inevitable that countries will have to open up again to prevent their economies from stagnating or even collapsing. Stagnating means ceasing to improve or having no improvement. The various responses to these movements, xenophobia, and extreme nationalism in the receiving countries, dependency in the sending countries will continue to be pressing issues. That's all for our report, and thank you.